Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
I'm not going to lie to you. Putting on this Phillies hat and Phillies jersey right now to record this podcast, it makes me emotional. I shed a tear because I miss watching this team compete. It still smells like Citizens Bank Park. This jersey still smells like baseball. I opened up my closet to put it on because I haven't put this bad boy on since last summer, and it just reminded me of all those moments. Even though it got ugly towards the end and I had to watch Gabe Kapler walk up to the mound and have his stupid foot up on the step in the dugout with those stupid sunglasses all the time. Even though I had to watch that, I just miss watching them compete every single night, and to smell it, to see it, it's kind of shocking and it's stunning, and it's making me remember that this is really going on. This is real life. There is no baseball right now. It's so nice outside. I'm watching people in my neighborhood walking around, riding their bikes, walking their dogs. It's beautiful outside. I even partake. I put on some music. I put my headphones in. I bring the dog out for a super long walk, and I see everyone. This should be the time where baseball is on, and I walk my dog. I come in the house at 6:50, perfect time. I got 10 minutes until 7 o'clock where the game will then begin. I have it all mapped out in my brain, but now I come home at 6:50, and guess what? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, and it drives me insane. So, with that being said, the point of this podcast is going to be appreciating Bryce Harper, looking at the process of actually acquiring him, even though that part was kind of miserable, what he brought to the table last year, the energy he brought to this city, and just having a great Bryce Harper conversation. Before we dive into that, though, there has been some news surrounding the MLB. They came out with a couple different options. Bob Nightingale's reporting one, Jeff Passan's reporting the other. Is it possible that they go to a location like Arizona where they're in their own bubble and all the teams are playing there? Is it possible that they go to the spring training facilities and you have Florida versus Arizona eventually in the World Series with different divisions than the normal MLB season? That would be very interesting. I will have my opinions on those two options this week on the Powder Blue podcast with Frank Close, Jeff Mosher, and myself. So be on the lookout for that, whether it's on this YouTube page where I upload the visual content for that podcast, or you can follow me on Twitter at Broads81, and I tweet out when that podcast drops on Apple Podcast and all of the other platforms where that podcast is located. So be on the lookout for that. That's where I will have my opinion on what's going down with the MLB moving forward after reporting a couple options. Let's start with the process of getting Bryce Harper. I remember every single day waking up thinking, is this going to be the day? Will this be the day where Phillies baseball finally comes back? Because if you remember the year before, the team was exciting until a point, and then they absolutely collapsed. Nobody really believed in them, though. They were in first place. They were battling up at the top of the NL East, but it didn't make sense. They didn't have enough. They didn't have that oomph, but they were there, and they were competing until eventually they fell off the face of the earth, which it felt like every Phillies fan was just waiting to happen. Now, I remember personally with that season, I was never the guy that said, this is just so false, this team is so fake. For some reason, my mind told me they're winning. I mean, they just keep winning. Whether it doesn't feel right, whether on paper they don't have the right team, they are winning baseball games. So I'm not going to just crush them if they're going to keep winning. And I felt that way to one point until it then absolutely went in the other direction. And I said, all right, maybe you guys were right. But at the time, they were winning baseball games, and that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see winning baseball, watchable baseball. And they gave me watchable baseball until the very end. Getting Bryce Harper was so huge for the jolt that this Phillies organization needed. the Phillies don't make sense to me at times because you look around the MLB and you have the Dodgers, you have the Red Sox, you have the Yankees, you have the Chicago Cubs, you have these big market teams, and you would think that the Phillies would be in that category. They are a big market city. You could throw the Mets in there. I know the Mets are a dumpster fire, but they play in New York. It's hard to play under an organization like the Yankees in the same city, but they're another team that has a lot of money, and they're New York. It's New York in baseball. It holds a lot of value. The Phillies, they should be in that category, and I don't feel like they are. If you play baseball, you don't look at the Phillies the same way as those other cities. And I get LA has more to offer than just baseball. It's LA. It's Los Angeles. All the stars are there. So that's a selling point in its own. But Chicago, it's a big city. New York, it's a big city. LA's a big city. But in terms of not being LA, it's different. It's a different vibe. You don't have that selling point of it's Los Angeles with these cities. Why don't the Phillies have that type of, I don't know, oomph to their name? They don't have it, and they should. Maybe it has to do with not having that much of a winning culture over their career. Maybe it has something to do with, I don't know. I honestly don't know how much money they spend. Maybe that's starting to change based off of seeing the contract that Bryce Harper got, which we will get into, because at the end of the day, seeing what other guys are getting and seeing where the future of baseball is going, it's not even close to being bad. And I remember the overreaction to how big of a contract Bryce Harper got. Let's get back to the process. I got a little sidetracked there. Not the Sixers process. The Phillies process on getting Bryce Harper. I remember waking up every day. Please be the day. Please be the day. Please be the day. You're seeing John Heyman report all sorts of information, and Scott Boras is involved, and what a pain in the ass Scott Boras is. But he does his job beautifully. He understands how this thing works. He's a pain in the ass. He gets his guys money, though. There's a reason why Scott Boras is so successful. There's a reason why his players are so successful, and there's a reason why players want him as an agent. He gets the money. He gets the cash. And if you watch that NBC Sports Philadelphia, not documentary, but they had a film. I guess it's technically a documentary, but they had a film on the whole entire conversation with Matt Klentak, with John Middleton, with Bryce Harper, with some of the Phillies beat reporters, and how it all came together. And there was a clip of Scott Boras talking to John Middleton, and he was like, you are a strong son of a bitch, something similar to that. And it just shows, like, it is a tough man to work with, and John Middleton was able to execute. He flew his plane out just to have dinner with Bryce Harper and his wife, and to just have a conversation where it's mutual. It's not business. It's, hey, listen, this is us as people. Let's get to know each other. Let's just hang out as individuals. And that was ultimately a great selling point for John Middleton to go out and get that guy. I remember the time where it happened, though. I was actually sitting in class at Rowan University. It was an afternoon class. It had to have been about, if I remember correctly, somewhere around 3 o'clock on either I don't know if I remember the day, but it had to have been around 3 o'clock because class was getting ready to end, and everyone's phone started buzzing. Everyone started looking at their phone. Everyone was whispering, and the professor was like, yo, what's going on here? Why is everyone freaking out? Phillies just got Bryce Harper. We all started talking about it for the rest of class, remainder of class. We were all pumped up. We were waiting for the terms. But think about it. Manny Machado comes to town. You got the electrician outside of Citizens Bank Park, or the construction worker, whatever one he was. He had on the high-vis shirt, and he's saying, you got to come here to Philly. And I was a guy who would have liked either or. I wanted Bryce Harper more because he's a bigger name, and he fits the Philly narrative more, all right? As much as the no hustle thing was a conversation with Manny Machado, to an extent, it was legit. It was like a legitimate point, but it would never be to the extent of, I'm not going to go out and get Manny because at times he doesn't hustle. This is baseball. This is the 162 games. There's plenty of people that don't hustle every single play, and that's fine with me. I'm not one of those old school people where it's, you better run out every single play. No. Stop it. This is not how this works. It's human nature that you don't hustle every single play. 162 games. It just doesn't happen. Nobody, literally nobody does that. As much as right now you want to come up with somebody who does, you might even say Bryce Harper. There are times where he grounds out to the pitcher or he'll ground out to second base, and he might give you 75, 80%. All right? I promise you, not every player gives it to you all the time. I would have been okay with Manny Machado, but I wanted Bryce. It was just more of a flashier name. He's more exciting. Not that Manny's not, but it's just a different level of athlete. It's a different style. It's a different name. This is a guy who, as much as Mike Trout is the best player in baseball, Bryce Harper is the biggest name. He is the face. Mike Trout is the best player. No one's denying that. And there's better players than Bryce Harper. I'm also not denying that. But when it comes to the face, when it comes to the name, Bryce Harper pops. It really does. And for him to choose Philadelphia over other cities, people don't do that. It's not a popular city to choose. And it has nothing to do with we're mean to people, we're brutal, you really got to bring your work ethic, you got to bring your lunch pail to work. It has nothing to do with that part of it. It has to do with location. It has to do with location. Philadelphia, I personally love it. I grew up in this area. I can't imagine not being in Philly. It's one of the greatest places in the world. But when you grow up in Las Vegas, when you grow up in all these other places, you don't look at Philadelphia the same way you do when you're born in the area, when you are used to it. You can totally be a Los Angeles guy. You could be just a California guy in general. You can be a guy who loves the Midwest. Philadelphia pops to us because we were born here and we enjoy it and we know and we appreciate it. But it's not a city where it's like, wow, I have to go to Philadelphia. So to see a big-time free agent who was such a big name choose us, it's super important. Now keep in mind, money talks. Money talks. At the end of the day, money talks in sports. And when you lay out a big check, it's a beautiful thing and a player will listen. Now, it also helps that this offseason where it all occurred, it wasn't as if all the big dogs were involved. There were some guys who had some contracts in some big markets, and it wasn't as if every single person on the block, all the big dogs, were heavily invested in Bryce Harper. I don't believe that was a talent thing. There's this funny narrative out there that Bryce Harper is overrated and he stinks and he's overpaid. That's just not the case. And when you just look at this league, I mean, I have the numbers in front of me here. Bryce Harper got a long-term deal. He's here for a long-ass time. But financially, all right, $26 million per year for ages 27. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. A lot of different numbers here in front of me. $26 million per year for ages 27 to 35. Then at the back end for $22 million, ages 36 to 38. Factor this in. There will be a DH in the National League. There will be a DH in the National League. That changes a lot. You can play him in the DH spot later on in his career. And no doubt about it, you pay a guy like Bryce Harper a lot of money, right? You do. With $330 million, it's a lot of money, even though I say in terms of where the league is going, when you look at Mookie Betts and Garrett Cole and all of these other guys, Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon is another name. When you look at the future of where this is going, it's not a ton of money. It's still a lot of money, though. $330 million for over 10 years. I mean, it was a significant amount of time when it comes to term, too. You will see, though, that the game will develop. He will be able to give you prime years. The DH comes into play. That's what I talk about when the game will develop. He will give you prime years, and then you have to bite the bullet towards the end. You sacrifice that any day of the week. You sacrifice 3 years at the end when he's close to 38 years old, 37 years old, 36 years old, if you're going to get him from 27 to 37. That's the nature of sports. That's a good business decision. And speaking of business decision, that's what this is as well. You got John Middleton selling tickets, selling jerseys, selling hats, Bryce Harper is must-watch television. I remember when Andrew McCutchen was up to bat, when Gene Segura was up to bat. I would be anticipating the hell out of him going up to the plate. Like when you saw the Phillies were about to come back to the top of the order, you get to the edge of your seat. When he's up, you are literally almost on your couch with your hands on your knees, putting the volume up to 60, getting ready to see him every single pitch. He does that. That's what he has done to this city when it comes to baseball. It hasn't been that way since Chase Utley, since really, as much as we love Chase Utley, it was that way. But in terms of power, ready to hit a homer, ready to literally bring the ballpark to its feet, when Ryan Howard was up to bat, when he was in his prime, when he was crushing 50 ding-dongs a year, you would be there putting the volume up to 70. You might even be standing up for Ryan Howard. That's what Bryce Harper does. So from a business standpoint, you pay him 27 to 35, 26 mil per, and then the back end it's 22 mil per for a couple seasons. You bite that bullet any day of the week. It makes total sense. Now, going back to some of these contracts that were signed recently, Garrett Cole for the Yankees, who can totally afford it, $36 million per year, so $10 million more per year for ages 29 through 37. Now think about that. That's obnoxious. Now Cole's a beast. He's absolutely a stud. The Yankees needed a pitcher. That's one of the things they really needed to help that squad, and they're in win-now mode, and they have Carlos Stanton, although he got hurt. You got Judge, although he got hurt. Severino, who needed Tommy John. They're completely banged up, but he is a true number one who can carry a baseball team. I'm not knocking that. Would I pay that? Yeah, that's the price right now. And I'm the New York Yankees in this scenario. Yes, I'm paying him. I'm not saying I'm not paying these guys, but look at how much they're making per, and look at the luxury tax the Phillies made out. Absolutely. Mike Trout, $35 million per year from ages 28 to 38. That's a ton of money. You're talking about $9 million more per year. Now, Mike Trout, I get it. His numbers are historic. I would pay that much money for Mike Trout. I'm not saying, I'd rather have Bryce Harper than Mike Trout. That's not the conversation I'm having. But value-wise, for what Bryce Harper brings to the table, this narrative that he's overrated, that he stinks, that he's god-awful, I can't believe he made $330 million, you need to dive deeper. You need to look at how they spread this thing out financially over his tenure here. You need to look at what he brings when it comes to stats. And if you look at batting average and you use batting average as your argument, I don't think you know how baseball works in 2020. It dives way deeper than just batting average. Now, did Bryce Harper have the best season in the world last year? No, not at all, but he was the farthest thing from the issue. Defensively, holy hell, I would say he was tremendous defensively with all those assists out there in right field. He had a cannon. He was throwing guys out left and right at third base, second base. He was electric, sliding into the fence, sliding in everywhere, sliding into foul territory for fly balls. I remember when the Phillies were pretty much out of it and it got bad in that late run. The Phillies weren't even close to being involved. It's late. The season's almost over. That specific game's almost over. And he's diving into the foul territory, almost hitting his head on the side there just for a fly ball in a game that's pretty much useless. He was great defensively. And looking at his numbers, he hit .260, so it's not insane, but okay, batting average is not that important anymore. It's not the stat, let's say. It's still important. That's obnoxious to say it's not important, but it's not the telling stat anymore. 99 walks, 35 homers. I would have absolutely liked to see more home runs, and I've mentioned this a few times now. I think the preseason stuff, the spring training, the contract, the getting a new place, being involved in Philly, having a child, his wife was pregnant. There was so much going on last year. It definitely played a factor in how he was at certain points. He looked great in this spring training. He looked so fresh and so focused, and it looked like a different Bryce Harper. I think a lot of outside noise and outside pieces affected the way he was last season, and he still had a really good season. So 35 homers, I would like to see closer to 40, but still, it wasn't terrible. 114 RBI, 36 doubles. He was top 25 in OBP. He was top 40 in OPS. He was fine. He was the farthest thing from the issue in Philadelphia. He is just electrifying. The way he runs to second base. If it's a single into the outfield, he's hustling around first and he's sliding into second and he's literally pumping his fist and he's bringing his hands up to his face and his hair is flowing and he just brings the juice and the whole city and the whole fan base and the entire team and the dugout. It gets an extra boost just because it's him. Because it's him. And when you look at the way he speaks to the media and the way he talks about Philadelphia, it's a rare breed to find someone this professional. I can't believe it. I'm a little stunned. I wish he had more of a bad guy attitude to him. He had that more when he was younger, playing for the Washington Nationals. I wish he still had that. He doesn't. He's becoming more of a legit pro. And when you look at the way that he is on social media, you look at the way that he carries himself on and off the field. I put him in LeBron James category. This is a guy who was on magazines, the cover of magazines, since he was a teenager, and he was brought up in this era of social media, and he's just a standard, traditional, good family man who says all the right things, who doesn't associate himself with bad stuff outside of the sport or even in the sport. He carries himself so highly that I compare him to LeBron James when it comes to how he is, and that's very rare to find. Once again, I think it's a little too much on a, hey, I'm a pro. I wish he had more swag to him, but I talk about this with D-Ray on our Sixers podcast, Processed. LeBron James, actually D-Ray brought this up, I just agree with him. LeBron James is somewhat corny. Some of his antics are corny, but he's an ultimate pro. I feel the same way with Bryce Harper. I think to an extent he might be a little corny, but he's an ultimate pro, and when he's on the diamond, he brings what you need out of a star like Bryce Harper. He brings this entire city and community together, and it's just such a big investment for John Middleton and this organization that will absolutely pay off no matter what. The Nats won the World Series last year once Bryce Harper left. We get it. Ha 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 ha. We all went down there when the Nats played the Phillies for the first time in Washington, D.C. We took buses down. We won Harper. We got Harper. It was not we won. It was we got at that point. And we flooded down there. We were obnoxious. Ha ha. Joke's on us. They won the World Series. I give them every piece of credit in the world. They were fun as hell to watch. It was an underdog story. They went on this crazy run. Juan Soto was awesome in the playoffs. I'm a huge Max Scherzer guy. He has that dog mentality. Strasburg was fun to watch. I enjoyed their run, no doubt. The Bryce Harper thing, as if Bryce Harper is a problem, that's just not the truth. I think maybe they used it to their advantage with Anthony Rendon, with these pieces. Hey, they think we're done. They think we're screwed because Bryce Harper left. Now, let's dig deep. Let's come together. I think from that standpoint, yeah, that helped them win the World Series from a, hey, everybody's counting us out standpoint, not from a legit talent standpoint, as if Bryce Harper hurt them talent-wise or if he's this bad teammate. He's not this bad teammate. He is absolutely the complete opposite, in my opinion. He is almost one of the greatest teammates that you can find just based off of how mature he is now. Maybe back then. Maybe when he was choking guys in the clubhouse, although, keep in mind who it is, it's Jonathan Papelbon. That guy's an absolute nightmare to deal with as well, so you can't not put that into the equation when all of that broke. Two, it's just funny to me that this whole narrative of Bryce Harper stinks, he's overrated. I don't know if you watch baseball if that's the case. Smart baseball fans see what he brings to the table. It's just a guy that gets a lot of heat for his name. For some reason, he just gets a lot of heat for who he is. The contract's not that big, and it won't be. Talk about 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road when players are signing $480, $500 million. Stop. 330, that's laughable. At 26 mil per, that's laughable. The Phillies essentially got him at a bargain. He's not going to be the same deep into his 30s. You understand that now, though. You're going to get him for the prime. And that's where the frustration comes in, where, hey, listen, look at his age now. Look where he's at. He's in that range where I give him that. Listen, this is your prime. It starts at 27 years old. In baseball, it might start a little bit earlier compared to the NBA. That's my time frame for the NBA more because it's such a grown man's league. You can see Juan Soto. You can see Ronald Acuna Jr. You can see younger players come up, and then they're really still firing on all cylinders at a 22 years old or so. In terms of baseball, you can do that. Not so much in the NBA when it comes to winning a championship. You can score points and facilitate the game and be an all-star at 22. You can't bring your team to 3 finals in a row and win them all at that age. It's just not how it goes. Anyway, I digress because that conversation, I can go on for a long time about that one. I'm excited for the future of Bryce Harper. This was just a podcast to somewhat reminisce on what he brought to the table his first year here, the process of getting him. And when you look at the future of what he can bring, it's exciting baseball. It's must-watch television to the point where you are in a stance ready to rock and roll when this guy's up to bat. And it's not just him. And Matt Klentak is still searching for some starting pitching to help him, and that needs to happen. But if he signs JT Realmuto, which he needs to do, and Andrew McCutchen gets healthy, and Scott Kingery can do his thing at second base, you get Rhys Hoskins back, and this is me being optimistic. Deep down inside, I'm not believing it until I see it. But if all this stuff shapes up, well, then we're in a good position. But enjoying Bryce Harper being here, choosing Philly, being such a big name, the passion, and embracing this city. He's working out in Sixers jerseys on his Instagram. He's always talking about the Eagles this and the watching the Flyers. He's boys with Kevin Hayes, so he has Kevin Hayes and a couple other guys tagged on his Instagram stories when watching the Flyers back when the season was happening. He is a Philadelphian, and I love the fact that he is so open about that blue-collar work ethic, bring the lunch pail, and not everyone's just so open to accept it, and he is all in on Philadelphia. And from an athlete this large, you don't see that often because it's not a place that screams at free agents. It's not a place. Money helps. It's just not that place location-wise, weather-wise, as much as we love it, which we all love it. I know we do. It's great. When you look at the entire world, though, and all the places you can go for sports, it's not a place that just grabs all the free agents in the world. So to see him come here, it's just so beautiful, and I can't wait to watch him play if we ever come back every night. Every single night. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform for podcasts, you can leave a review and you can comment with your thoughts. I read those as well. And I will see you next time.